Hi everyone, this is Mr. Zoeller, and today I'm going to be presenting you a screencast video on federalism and how amendments are made to the Constitution. So students, there are two things that I want you to get out of this screencast today. So two objectives, so make sure to write these down. So the first is that as a student you can identify the difference between delegated, reserved, and concurrent powers. So I'll talk about that later. And that you can illustrate examples of these as they apply to the federal and state governments. And then also I want you to be able to explain how changes are made to the Constitution through what's called the amendment process. So one word I want you to know the definition for is called federalism. So federalism is the constitutional system that shares power between the national and state governments. So basically the United States government and all of the state governments, how do they work and interact with each other? So some of them have their own unique powers and some powers they share. So taking a look at this diagram down in here, what governments do we have in the United States? So we have one U.S. government, or that would be the federal government, or the national government. We have 50 states, so we had 50 state governments. And then with each state, we have local governments. So we have county governments, like Kern County. We have our own Kern County government. City, so Bakersfield, we have our own Bakersfield City government. If you had a town, towns have their own local governments. School districts, so our school district has our own government where we vote on different things. And then special districts for different parts of resources in the county and the city. So altogether across the United States, we have almost 90,000 governments altogether. So there's not just one type. So federalism is how do they all share power between each other? So let's go ahead and take a look here. So here are some examples of powers. So powers of the national government are called delegated powers. They're given to the federal government, such as levying tariffs and taxes, regulating trade, making our money, maintaining our military, declaring war, establish post offices, and establish courts. So those are all powers that belong to the United States government. On the right side over here, we have powers of the state government. So these are powers reserved to the states and the people. So states have the power to tax our citizens, control public education, punish criminals, protect public health and safety, conduct elections, establish local governments, and make marriage laws. And then finally, concurrent powers. So what powers do they both share between the states and the national government? So they both have the power to maintain law and order, so levy taxes, borrow money, to take land for public use, and provide for the public welfare, going back to the preamble of the Constitution there. So delegated powers are the powers given to the federal or national government. So these include the right to make money and the right to regulate trade. So when you think about shipping, airports, and the money that we're using, all that comes from the United States government for that. They create the rules and laws in regards to that. For reserved powers, the powers that are kept to the states, so this involves creating our own local governments at the county and at the city level, our school districts, holding elections. So California establishes when elections are held, what are the rules for that. So those are just some of the powers that belong to every single state. And then concurrent powers are just powers that both the U.S. government and the states share. And so easy way to remember that is that both the states and the federal government can create laws. They also have the power to enforce those. So in California, we have the CHP, the California Highway Patrol, Bakersfield Police Department, Kern County Sheriff's Department. All those are in regards to enforcing local, county, state laws. And then we also have the United States government has their own laws as well that are also enforced. So here's another example here, concurrent power. So California State Police Department. So if you go to the CSUB, Cal State Bakersfield, you'll see those around. And then for the federal government, we have the FBI and other organizations that enforce the law. And then for education, we have the Department of Education here in the state of California. And there's also a federal Department of Education. And we kind of have more of a move now of having more power of education going back to the state governments versus the federal government.
And now, another fact of Congress. Our government is like a big three-layer cake. We have local government, state government, and national government, often called federal government. But your local government doesn't handle foreign affairs, and your federal government doesn't handle trash pickup. Local government handles local issues like police, water, and building permits. State government handles issues about your state such as education, health care, and recreation. Federal government handles national issues such as national parks, the military, and space exploration. The U.S. Congress is a part of our federal government. This system of dividing responsibilities among governments is called federalism. And that's another fact of Congress.
And then finally, let's take a look at our last objective is, well, how do we make actual changes to the Constitution? And that's through the amendment process. So in Article 5 of the Constitution, it says how amendments can be made. An amendment just means a change to something. So to amend or change the Constitution, it requires a vote of 2/3 of both the House of Representatives and the Senate. Once that is approved, that's a proposal. That doesn't mean it's approved yet. And then it's going to go to every single state. And each state legislature, each state government gets to vote either in favor or against that proposed amendment. And so it takes 3/4, 75% of all the states to vote in favor of an amendment to make it official. And so once it's official, it's now a part of the Constitution. It's the law of the land, meaning that the U.S. government and the state governments all have to follow it. So you can take a look down here at this chart to see another way of how that's done. So how many amendments do we have so far? So right now we have 27 amendments that have been approved. We've had over 10,000 in our time that have been suggested. And the very first 10 amendments, so amendments 1 through 10, were demanded in exchange for approving the Constitution. So remember, the Anti-Federalists wanted to make sure our government had rights that were listed that they would be protected. So those are called the Bill of Rights. So those can guarantee specific rights to the citizens, such as freedom of speech, freedom of religion, right to bear arms, and we'll go over that in a future video. And then the other 17 amendments have all been added one at a time. So the Bill of Rights was like a package, 1 through 10, and then 11, and then 12, and so on, were added separately. So some specific ones that you'll need to know in the future: guaranteeing rights to certain groups. So 13th Amendment abolished or got rid of slavery. 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote. And the 26th Amendment changes the voting age to be 18 versus 21 that it was before. All right, that's all I have for you guys in this video. This is Mr. Zoeller. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.